Alright guys, what's going on? Next video, like I said last time, I was going to be doing Cyberpunk. Buddy, you better know you my friend. Because this is probably going to be my longest video to date. I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. I did not realize there was so much lore into the Cyberpunk, like Corpo Wars and start of it. It's just that wild to me. Like, I didn't realize that I had over 100 pages of stuff to go over. And that's condensing it down to the main points, summarizing it. We're not even talking about details. Like, I'm not doing complete details on it. At least this video. I might go back and do individual ones, but this is pretty much the timeline for it. This will be going over how the government failed in the first place, why it kept falling. And a lot of things. I'm gonna have a table of contents over here. That way, because there'll be some acronyms it's going to give that I'll be saying out loud. That will, how do I put it? It will need you to know, otherwise I'd have to keep saying it all the time. So I'm gonna put the table of contents there for you to look at and say, oh, well, what does that mean? That's what that means. Okay. I'm gonna read it. It looks readable on my screen, but I'm also on desktop looking at it, so I'm not sure how it may look on the phone. If maybe on full screen mode, it'll probably look a little better. But just let me know down in the comments how it is. No, I'm not sponsored. I wish. All right. So. I hope you guys like the music. I found a kind of like cyberpunkish but slower, calmer version for reading. There will be a lot of reading here, just to let you know. I don't have a billboard this time for it. There are some things I'm going to show a picture of later on to describe it, because they have some things but not others. Like some of the orbital platforms and stuff, they just don't have pictures for yet. So it's kind of one of the things of, I don't really have something to reference, but you can kind of imagine what it would look like from probably playing video games and stuff like that. So, without further ado, I might as well just get started on it. Okay. Alright, here we go. Alright, let me turn on your contents. I'll even make it a little bigger. There we go. Okay. So I think there's 10 parts in this. I'm not exactly sure. So let's get started on it, shall we? Okay, Cyberpunk. I'm assuming you got some drastic idea of what Cyberpunk is. Either you play the games or you know just what it is from talking to people. Pretty much is what happened. It's what's going to happen to us if corporations take over the world. Mind you, I'm a capitalist at heart. I love it, but capitalism has to also be minorly controlled to keep from the stuff like this happening. If not, otherwise we're going to, have the same thing happen pretty much. We're going to have wars and stuff like that. So. Alright, foundations. We're going back way to the beginning of it here. So this is long before the wars actually happened, and back whenever Night City first got started. Okay, so that starts out in the 70s through 1970 through 1989. You look back far enough and you'll see the cracks long before it collapses. Ladies and gentlemen, before the corporate wars, before Night City rose and fell and rose again, the world was already sliding towards the brink. Not with explosions, not with gunfire, but policy, profit, and power left unchallenged. Beginning in the 1970s and accelerating to the 80s, international corporations grew faster than any government could regulate. Global trade agreements prioritized corporate rights over national law. Automation replaced human labor. Old crises crippled economies already weakened by political deadlock. Private military companies emerged as contractors, quietly becoming armies for hire. And perhaps most importantly, corporations learned they could influence policy more cheaply by buying politicians. Sounds very familiar, don't it? Yeah, real familiar. Real familiar. I ain't gonna talk about that though. By the end of the 1980s, the world map still showed nations, but the real power belonged to boardrooms. And we're still going that way now. So, deregulation, the first death of government. This is from 1990 to 1993. When you give a wolf the keys to the hen house, don't be surprised when the hens disappear. Correct. Factual. When you give the early 1990s were a turning point. Under increasing economic pressure and political lobbying, world powers enacted sweeping deregulation. The U.S., Japan, and EU lifted restrictions on corporate expansion. I'm assuming you know what EU means, European Union. Corporations gained broad immunity to operate across borders. Private security were authorized in dozens of nations. Trade laws stripped governments of leverage over multinational assets. We're just there now. Like this is just us already as it is, and that's like that describes the 80s and 90s in terms of military and private military. We're still there now. And a new giant sail stage, Militech, International Armaments, Militech. You'll hear them a lot later on, along with a few other ones, but that's the main one you'll hear about, other than Arasaka. So, no longer contractor, Militech began openly building armored divisions, rapid deployment units, satellite-linked command networks, and private air forces, pretty much becoming the military of the world. It was the moment government stopped holding a monopoly on violence. A balance formed. Governments made laws, corporations made decisions, and people who enforced those decisions were Militech. The dream of a clean city. This is 1994 to 1996. He promised a free city of corruption. Instead, he created the greatest battlefield in history. As is every person who ever wants to create a smart city. So, in 1994, an idealist named Richard Knight, N-I-G-H-T, just to let you know, unveiled the most ambitious urban project ever conceived, Coronado City. A shining metropolis designed to be corruption-free, automated, corporate-financed, efficient, and immune to political decay. Knight's vision attracted four mega corporations, which you will hear about them all throughout this video. Arasaka, Euro Business Machines, EBM, Petrochem, and Biotechnica. So, I think Petrochem, Biotechnica, and EBM end up like phasing out after like the third Corpo War. So they invested billions. Construction crews swarmed the site. Automated infrastructure systems were laid down. High-tech architectural towers began to rise. But someone always loses when a utopia is built. That's true. And that someone was organized crime. The mafia, tiger claws, and various syndicates pushed back. They attacked construction sites, bombed supply depots, kidnapped foremen, extorted unions. Arasaka responded with its first major American deployment of covert operations. Coronado City became a battleground long before it became a city. The assassination of Richard Knight, 1998. When you kill a dreamer, you inherit his nightmare. These are some good quotes. I want you to know that. I had to dig through these for these. In late 1998, Richard Knight was shot through the glass wall of his penthouse. No witnesses, no shell casings, no suspects. Every major power had motive. The mob, threatened by his clean city vision. Rival megacorps, angry at his favoritism. Arasaka factions, fighting for dominance. Political enemies, fearing corporate precedent. His death sent shockwaves through the project. Construction halted, investors froze assets. Crime syndicates celebrated, and Arasaka tightened its grip as hard as it could. The city was renamed Night City. No longer a dream, but a warning. The City of Corporate Shadows from 1999 to 2003. Night City did not grow. It metastasized. By 1999, Night City became something new, a corporate frontier town, a playground of unchecked ambition, a laboratory for social and economic experimentation, a city without functioning government kept alive by corporate interest. Corporations carved out zones like medieval lords. Arasaka claimed the corporate tower. Petrochem seized the port and industrial lines. EBM controlled logistics corridors. Gangs and syndicates filled every vacuum left behind. Meanwhile, private armies grew: Arasaka Security, Militech PMCs, and corporate militias, along as freelance mercenaries. Street warfare became nightly entertainment. Night City was no longer a project, it was a blueprint. A prototype for a world where megacorps ruled openly and where nations were left to pick up the scraps. Alright. That is the end, part 1. Now we will skip ahead to now we're going to the First Corpo War. The Corpo Wars were a series of wars fought between the corporations over different things, which is kind of what, instead of what we're having now where nations are fighting over resources, instead it's going to be corporations in this. And because corporations run the world, pretty much. So, Alright. I hope you're liking it so far. I'm trying to stay as upbeat as possible and keep it, and add some finesse to it, you know. Alright, the First Corpo War, from 2004 to 2006. The world's first corporate conflict, a war fought not over borders, but over markets. The First Corpo War was not the bloodiest, it was not the most destructive, but most people alive at the time didn't even realize a war was happening. But make no mistake, this was the opening shot of an era. The age when corporations no longer competed, they conquered. This war changed everything. It established doctrines, weapons, and logistics that would define the next century, and it proved once and for all that corporations were the true superpowers of the world. So, it's the spark, Arasaka Militech Shadow Conflict. Two giants, one market, infinite consequences. The First Corporate War began with the same rivalry that would define the next 100 years. Arasaka Corporations versus Militech, International Armaments. Both had risen to global prominence, both had their own armies, both wanted total control of corporate security markets, politico-military contracts, global high-threat operations, and protection services for megacorps. Two companies selling the same product, safety through violence. Ain't that always fun? You love the Second Amendment, right? Something had to give. The spark came with a lucrative high-tier security contract with Trans World Airlines. Was up for bid. They both wanted it, and both refused to lose. So, the bidding process generated into sabotage, intimidation, espionage, boardroom corps, hostile asset takeovers, blackmail, and assassinations. By the end of 2004, the conflict turned kinetic. Not over land, not over ideology, but over who got to protect the passengers of an airline. I know, right? It just sounds dumb to me. I'm like, why are y'all fighting over a contract over airplanes? There's hundreds of other things you could do. Like, why planes? I don't know. So, okay. Sorry. Corporate alliances form. 2004. Wars were not waged alone, not even by megacorps. Arasaka and Militech began calling in favors. Arasaka called in Japan's Keiretsu Network, Kang Tao, early prototype collaborations, Zeta Tech, and European financial houses sympathetic to Arasaka's banking division. Militech's allies were the U.S. government, covert sponsorship, IEC, International Electric Corporation, you should see it there on the table of contents, the EBM as well, you should see it on there as well, and Petrochem and Biotechnica. This turned into a corporate rivalry with a true global conflict. Arasaka and Militech weren't fighting alone. The entire economy was lining up behind one side or the other. The battlefield number 1, the seas. The first shots of the corporate wars were fired across the waves. Earliest major engagements happened at sea, targeting cargo fleets, shipping routes, offshore refineries, oceanic data cables, floating factories. Both sides hired mercenary navies, cyber sabotage teams, drone fleets, and underwater demolition units. Militech naval tactics were fast attack craft, armed convoys, drone reconnaissance, and micro-sub hunter drones. Arasaka's naval tactics were stealth submersibles, covert boarding teams, electromagnetic pulse mines, and strike from below sabotage. Shipping delays cascaded into global shortages. Energy markets surged and collapsed. Insurance companies went bankrupt from endless sabotage claims. The world economy was bleeding before anyone even realized a war was happening. You gotta love it, right? Just gotta love it. So, Battlefield 2, the sky. Now we're taking to the sky. Free bird, yeah. When wars escalate, they climb. By mid-2005, the conflict moved into the air. Arasaka aerial combat assets, cyber-enhanced pilots, stealth helicopters, VTOL insertion craft, and corporate jet interceptors. Militech aerial combat assets include armored tilt rotors, drone bomber wings, air superiority drones, corporate escort fighters. The skies that they fought over were the Pacific, North America, East Asia, and the Mediterraneans. They became hunting grounds. Most people never heard these battles. They were fast, silent, corporate, but each intercept, each drone kill, each destroyed cargo jet shifted millions of dollars in power. Battle for number 3, the boardrooms. Not every battle was fought with bullets, but with the pen. The first corporate war wasn't only fought with guns, it was fought with hostile mergers, shareholder raids, leveraged buyouts, cyber theft of financial systems, takeover of corporate boards, forced legal documents, bribery of regulators, target assassinations, disguised as accidents. We do some of that now, don't we? This war was fought with money, influence, misinformation, legal warfare. Arasaka's banking division nearly crushed Militech's liquidity. Militech's lobbying nearly got Arasaka banned from several markets. The war was as much on Wall Street and in Tokyo as it was on the battlefield. Alright, here goes some of the cool stuff that I'd like to see. The Black Ops and deniable units. So, when you deny everything, you can do anything. Both megacorps employed deniable assets, units that did not officially exist. Arasaka's Black Ops. Unit Marusime, infiltration and silent elimination. Blackwing teams were urban terror and sabotage. Ronin group, disposable assassins. Which, funnily enough, those are actually still technically in the game when you play. Those robots they send after you are Arasaka's Black Ops units trying to kill you. Which is pretty cool. I realized that after I read that. I'm like, oh yeah, so that's what the Ronin he was talking about. Okay. Suma Corps, heavily augmented shock troopers. Sounds pretty cool, don't it? So, Militech Black Ops, Kestrel Division, Rapid Assault Infiltration, Shadowlance, Intelligence Termination Teams, Eclipse Ghosts, Stealth Recon Cyber Operatives, Unit Gorgon, Anti-Arasaka Hunter Killers. These units executed warehouse burnings, data center raids, forced extraction of engineers, targeted killings of executives, cyber warfare strikes on infrastructure. The world was a burning shadow first. Alright, we're almost to the end of the first one, I promise. The end of the war. Not with victory, but with exhaustion. By 2006, both corporations realized they were bleeding money, markets were collapsing, allies were losing patience, governments were starting to notice openly, so the war ended the same way it began. Backroom deals. Always gotta love the backroom deals, you know. Just gotta slide in there, but listen. Okay, listen. We'll do this if you do that. That's all we gotta do. Okay? That's all we gotta do. So, no treaties, no accountability, no justice. The outcome. Arasaka gained dominance in Asia and the Pacific. Militech gained dominance in North America and Europe. Okay, there we go. And both realized that future wars would need to be faster, sharper, and more ruthless. They were already planning for the next one. They weren't stopping. The first corporate war taught megacorps the most important lesson of all. They could wage war without consequences, and the world would adapt to their violence. Don't you just love it? Alright, second Corpo War. The war beneath the waves, the oceanic conflict that corporations tried to erase from history. Okay. If the first corporate war was the prototype, the second corporate war was the proof of concept. Corporations could fight a full-scale conflict without the public ever realizing it even happened. We probably do that now, to be honest with you, but it's alright. No televised battles, no invading armies, no declarations of war, just the silent, crushing pressure of the deep ocean, and the two megacorps willing to drown the world to gain its resources. Hey, the powder keg. Control the ocean. In the 21st century, the oceans became more valuable than land. By 2008, corporations had discovered the future of wealth lay in the sea. They had deep mining operations, undersea data cables, offshore towns, and arcologies. floating agricultural superstructures, underwater research labs, oceanic oil refineries, desalination complexes, pipelines linking continents. Two corporate giants rose to dominate these assets. The OTEC, Ocean Technology and Energy Corporation. You should be able to see it. Oh, I left one out. Oh well. Okay. And then the next one you should be able to realize is CINO, the Sea International Naval Organization, commercial international organization. So, both claim rights to the same undersea territories. Both accuse each other of sabotage, theft, and illegal expansion. The oceans became the new frontier, and there was only room for one king beneath the waves. And it began with lawsuits, then hostile takeovers, then accidents involving submarines. By the late 2008, the ocean was at war. The deadly importance of ocean resources. He who controls the seafloor controls the data, fuel, and lifeblood of the world. Why did this matter? Why did this matter so much? Why did the ocean matter? Because in the cyberpunk world, the sea is worth more than gold. Which, to be frank, it is in our world as well. But we just haven't exploited it to that expanse yet. At least as far as I know, unless they got something going on we don't know about, which is also possible. Don't forget that. So, number one, undersea data cables. They carry 90% of the world's data. Cut them, nations go dark. Which a lot of people don't know, but is that between the North America and Europe, we have undersea data cables now. And that's what transmits most of the actual information between our countries. Not satellites, but these undersea cables. They travel faster than it takes information to go from the ground to a satellite. That's how fast they are. And I think that's pretty cool, especially since they don't teach us that much. They don't talk about it as much. But it is pretty cool that we have that, and that's how we really communicate. So, sorry, that's a little side tangent thing there. Alright. Rare earth mining. Powerful alloys and advanced tech require minerals only found in the deep water. Aquatic agriculture megastructures. Food shortages meant ocean farms kept the population fed. Which is kind of ingenious if you think about it. Just put it on the water and you can recycle the water and keep watering plants with it and all that, and have it out in the middle of the ocean where there's no seasons. It's just always, sunny. Alright, one of you billionaires, if you see this, you need to start doing that. So, offshore oil deposits. Still vital, still fought over, is worth killing for. Which is, kind of what we're doing now. Let's be honest. Here. Okay. Military listening posts. Silent surveillance arrays lining the ocean floor. OTEC and CINO weren't fighting for pride. They were fighting for the planet's central nervous system. The war begins, 2008. The first casualties never saw their killers. CINO struck first. A mining platform operated by OTC vanished beneath the waves. No distress call, no survivors, no debris. OTEC responded by hiring Militech security teams. CINO retaliated with Arasaka-backed Black Ops, not Black Drops, sorry. Suddenly, the world's two largest underwater corporations had the two largest PMC superpowers behind them. Of course, you had to go run to the bigger boys. Okay, OTEC and Militech. Naval contractors, deep-sea drone fleets, underwater demolition squads, amphibious assault units. CINO and Arasaka, stealth submersibles, cyber-enhanced diving troops, acoustic jamming pods, and underwater snipers. This wasn't a skirmish, it was a shadow war with trillions of dollars at stake. The battle for the seafloor. The majority of the Second Corporate War was fought at depths where pressure crushes steel, sunlight never reaches, sonar is the only sense, and silence means survival. Key battlegrounds: the Mariana Archaeology Ruins, Pacific Pipeline Junction 17, the South Atlantic Fiber Spine, Arctic Deep Mining Complexes, Indian Ocean Relay Grid, Gulf of Mexico Subfarm Clusters. These sites represented global communications, energy supply, food production, corporate secrets, military surveillance. Every battle was high reward, high risk. I would go over where each one of these are and stuff like that, but if I did that, it would take me 5 hours to do this video because there's just so much. I'm going over the whole timeline of it. If y'all want me to make a more in-depth video of each individual section of it, like each war and what was involved and where it was at, just let me know. I'll do it later. I want to hear some people say if they do or not. So, alright. Technology of the deep. Corporations deployed experimental technologies never seen again. OTEC and Militech had hydro-armored diving suits capable of resisting bone-crushing pressure, had Stingray torpedo fighters, fast, agile, remotely piloted, aquatic exo-rigs, full-body prosthetics designed for underwater war, pulse beam cutters, tools that became weapons. I don't have any pictures of these, so I can't really put them in the video because they don't really have they weren't like in the game and in the books and stuff, or the actual lore part of like the actual tabletop. They're just mentioned. So, Sino and Arasaka. Silent submersible drones, ghostfish, nearly undetectable. Acoustic disruption fields, blind sonar and scrambles enemy sensors. Electron lance rifles, weapons firing ionized shock waves. That sounds cool. Gene modded divers, biologically enhanced for deep water tolerances. You gonna alter people's genes and send them in the water? That's just messed up. I want you to know that. That's just messed up. This was the most technologically experimental of all corporate wars. Some of these inventions were never surfaced. Some were banned. Some became legend. Black Ops in the Abyss. If a soldier dies in the deep sea, does anyone ever find the body? Probably not, no. So, the ocean made it easy to hide crime, so Black Ops units flourished. Arasaka deep water kill teams specialize in silent infiltration, hull breaching, underwater assassination, disabling research labs. Militech saturation squads deployed pressure bombs, demolition drones, pipeline sabotage teams. Nomad ocean caravans hired as smugglers, salvage crews, and deniable reinforcements. Rogue freelancers, net runners, and solo divers who steal sonar maps, hack buoy networks, infiltrate oceanic listening posts. The deep sea was perfect battleground for atrocities. No oversight, no reporters or survivors. Escalation and cascade failure. As losses mounted, both sides escalated. Sino bombed OTEC Pacific Rim research habitats. Militech retaliated with shockwave strikes on Sino's Atlantic stations. Arasaka launched a coordinated sabotage campaign on OTEC's data cables. Militech engaged in open naval conflict off the coast of Chile. The ocean was destabilizing. Oil spills, ruptured pipelines, collapsing seafloor structures, massive data outages, dead zones in fisheries. Governments began to panic. Not for moral reasons, but because the war threatened global communications, their money. The end. Not a truce, a takeover. The war ended not because either side won. It ended because one side died financially. Sino went bankrupt. Like I said earlier, they were the ones that lost. So, they went bankrupt. Years of sabotage, losses, and operational disasters shattered its value. A coalition of corporations, many of them OTEC aligned, bought up Sino's remains. The Second Corporate War ended with no treaties, no accountability, massive ecological damage, and thousands dead, undersea communities wrecked, and trillions of dollars shifted overnight. And because the world never knew, because this war taught megacorps something critical. If the battlefield is invisible, the public cannot protest. That's why governments keep us in the dark now, because we can't protest if we don't know the truth. And they always hide us from the truth. But anyway. Alright, that was the end of the Second Corpo War. So, getting into the third one. Okay. This is the War of Third Corpo War. The war that didn't look like a war because it was fought in silence, in shadows, and in space between nations. This is where we went to space. This is a lot of stuff here. Third Corpo War was the least understood of the four. It had no grand naval battles, no burning cities, no televised shockwaves. Instead, it unfolded like a creeping sickness, slow, quiet, and lethal. Where the First Corpo War involved, or proved corporations could fight, the second proved they could fight unseen. The third proved they could fight anywhere, or everywhere all at once. It was a global conflict. Without front lines, a war fought through. Proxy militias, satellite warfare. Okay, still doing good. Massive cyber attacks, assassinations, economic terrorism, and covert orbital engagements. The war didn't end with the victor, it ended with the warning. If megacorps fight again, the world will not survive the next one. Alright, the rise of IEC in Arasaka's shadow, 2016. A giant rose, and Arasaka had decided it had to fall. In the early 2010s, a corporation began quietly building an empire powerful enough to challenge Arasaka, the International Electric Company. IEC was a data empire, energy provider, tech-com giant, orbital services corporation, and AI research powerhouse. Its influence stretched from European power grids, South American data markets, Pacific Rim telecom systems, American mining powerhouses, and orbital relay stations. IEC wasn't a military power, but it controlled infrastructure. The veins and arteries of the modern world. Arasaka saw this as a threat. Corporations don't share power, they devour it. So Arasaka moved in. Alright, so, shadow operations. Wars don't start with explosives, they start with disappearances. IEC's executives began dying. One drowned in a bathing accident. One suffered a heart attack at 41. One vanished over the Pacific. One was killed by a faulty elevator system. One's entire research team was burned in a freak lab fire. Every death was ruled accidental. Every insurance claim filed by Arasaka friendly boards. You just knew those were all already, not accidental. We're going to do that. So, meanwhile, strategic partners withdrew and hostile takeover surged. It was too coordinated to be coincidence. IEC responded by secretly hiring Militech, and the Third Corporate War went hot. Alright, Battlefield 1, the cities. Unlike the prior wars, the Third Corporate War unfolded inside megacities. Los Angeles, London, Osaka, Berlin, Johannesburg, Sao Paulo, and Singapore. These cities saw sabotage, data heists, drone assassinations, building bombings, gang proxy warfare, mass blackouts, hostage extractions, and targeted fires of financial districts. Examples: the Sao Paulo network crash of 2017. A cyber attack took down 68% of the city's power grid for 12 hours. That's a lot of time. Hospitals and traffic systems collapsed. 4,000 died. Another example, the Kingston archaeology bombing. A bomb disguised as a cleaning robot destroyed IEC's Caribbean data mirror. Or the Berlin Tri-Tower fire. Arson teams scorched 3 skyscrapers containing IEC's quantum computing labs. Every attack was surgical. Every casualty was collateral. Every city became a chessboard. Battlefield 2. For the first time since the Cold War, things started falling out of the sky. The Third Corporate War saw the use of limited orbital warfare since the early 2000s. They had satellites blinded, relay stations destroyed, orbital drones hijacked, accidental collisions, and Kessler-style debris events. Militech's tactics. There were drone interceptors, microsatellite hunter-killers, directed energy burns, hacking of Arasaka orbital assets. Arasaka's tactics were kinetic debris clouds. That's pretty cool. I won't lie, that just sounds pretty cool. Stealth nanosat relays, orbital sniper platform. What was an orbital sniper platform? I don't know. I couldn't find many details on it. So, cyber sabotage and Militech's launch vehicles. The results. By 2019, Earth's orbit became a minefield of debris. Portions of the sky were permanently unsafe. It was the first sign of the coming of the time of red, when atmospheric dust and orbital scrap would bathe the Earth in a crimson haze. But for now, the war kept escalating. Battlefield 3, the net, the internet. You gotta love it. It's always there. It's always stuck with you. You're not losing it. Alright. The net was the battlefield of the Third. IEC had one unbeatable advantage. They owned half the world's data. Arasaka had one unbeatable weapon. They owned the world's deadliest net runners and counter-intel systems. The net became a bloodbath of hacking, ice-on-ice warfare, AI skirmishes, server raids, ransomware, neural hijacking, corporate espionage. Arasaka's strategy: destroy IEC's data empire. They had black ice. They had, and not the type you're thinking. It's right there on the thing. Intrusion countermeasure electronics. Cerebral burn viruses, identity wipe programs, and server eating worms. Sounds a bit weird, but trust me, it's not as bad as you think it is. We actually had that. So, funnily enough, one of the first ever actual viruses we used in our world was created by a guy who used it, if I remember correctly, on the banking system. He created a virus where it would infiltrate the bankings. It would go to every individual. It would go from bank to bank. Sorry. It would go to each bank. Take out like a little bit of money you wouldn't ever suspect and move to the next. Move to the next. Move to the next. It did that for years. So finally I figured out what it is, but apparently from what I remember in class, it still was never taken care of. It's still out there somewhere. And it's just collecting money, and whoever finally figures it out is going to be rich. Alright, IEC strategy strike Arasaka where they were weakest. Tools, data corruption, infrastructure blackouts, AI assisted infiltration, ghost layer, hacks that bypass standard ICE. At its peak, the net war involved thousands of net runners, dozens of AIs, millions of infected devices, and multiple digital dead zones. Black Ops, the secret war behind the war. Arasaka deployed Morasama unit, stealth assassins, Blackwing, urban terrorist squad, Arasaka recon Kiji teams, intel gatherers, and more Ronin, expendable deniable teams. Militech deployed Kestrel Black Ops, Ranger Corps, Gorgon anti-Arasaka units, Firestorm teams. These teams eliminated executives, extracted or killed key personnel, triggered riots, civil unrest, bombed research labs, hacked cargo trains, and burned warehouses. The casualties were never officially counted. Alright, now we're in 2020, the fall of IEC. In the end, the biggest corporation in the world didn't die from guns, it died from silence. By 2020, IEC's data centers were shattered, half of their orbital assets were lost, their financial systems were corrupted, their board of directors was dead, missing, or compromised, their funding dried up, their AI projects were wiped out. Arasaka didn't defeat the IEC, it dismantled them. Piece by piece, bite by bite, body by body. In early 2020, IEC declared bankruptcy. Its assets were liquidated, its subsidiaries were devoured by global megacorp. Its research was stolen or erased. The third corporate war ended with a single outcome. Arasaka was now the most powerful megacorporation in human history. Its only remaining rival, Militech. And both were very hungry. Alright, these were the unintended consequences of said war. Okay. Permanent. Oh, shit. Get over here. Alright. It left permanent damage to orbital infrastructure, leading directly to the time of the Red. It had shattered the global data network, destabilizing global economy. Thousands of dead or lost net runners, making the net a haunted ruin. The rise of covert proxy warfare as standard corporate policy. Setting the stage for the next conflict, a world reliant on Arasaka security, which would soon prove disastrous. The world didn't know it yet, but it paved the road to the apocalypse. The Fourth Corporate War, the war that ends the world as we know it. Alright, but we're not going to that yet. We're talking about the fall of governments. So, from 2020 to 2022, how nations collapse under the economic shockwaves, corporate sabotage, data failure, and political fracture, leading to the Fourth Corporate War. Alright. It all happened in 1,000 small collapses, then all at once. The collapse of the world governments was not caused by a single bomb, virus, or treaty. It was caused by the Third Corporate War tearing the world's infrastructure apart, the rise of megacorp that outspent entire nations, the global data corruption from escalating NUTAR, international dependence on corporate logistics, and the first corporate-driven global recession. By the time the Fourth Corporate War began, the world's governments were already dying. Okay, global recession of 2020. This is where we're going to get into how the world's governments failed right before the corpos really officially took over for the first time. So, the global recession of 2020. The year 2020 marked the most catastrophic economic crash in human history, not caused by banks, interest rates, or political mismanagement, but by corporate sabotage. When the Third Corporate War destroyed IEC, the world's largest provider of power grids, telecom networks, data servers, financial transfer systems, and industrial infrastructure, the global economy lost its backbone. Consequences hit instantly. Stock markets froze, trade routes clogged, oil prices spiked. Telecom outages spanned continents, millions lost digital banking access, governments couldn't tax income they couldn't track. Governments have become dependent on corporate-run data infrastructure. When the infrastructure broke, so did the governments. Political gridlock and national fragmentation. It was that they were no longer built to. As the world economy crashed, political divisions exploded. In the old United States, Congress deadlocked. States argued over federal authority. Corporations seized public utilities. Infrastructure decayed faster than it should be. And civilian unrest surged. The federal government tried stimulus, tried austerity, and tried emergency powers. Nothing worked. Which, to be fair, in a situation like this, you're going to run into that anyway, because especially whenever everything collapses, you're just not going to be able to all of a sudden fix it. It's done. Which is really what we're kind of running into here now. If you get my drift, we're kind of getting there now. So, anyway, in Europe, the EU states clashed over resource rationing. Nationalist movements broke out. Corporate-backed political blocs seized influence. In Asia, Japan struggled under Arasaka's shadow. China fractured economically. Southeast Asia leaned into megacorp partnership for survival. In Latin America, weak states collapsed into cartel corporate alliance zones. Governments weren't being defeated, they were being replaced. The data collapse. The net, the old net, was dying. Rashi Bartman's data crash virus had been spreading for years, but the Third Corporate War accelerated it. Consequences: financial records corrupted, land deeds erased, identity databases scrambled, military communication networks crippled, government administrative systems wiped out. Most of the citizens lost Social Security identities, bank histories, medical records, legal documentation, and licenses, as well as passports. Could you imagine that happening now to us? Or any country for that matter. Just imagine all of a sudden one day your Social Security number is gone. Your bank account gone. Medical records gone. Everything gone. You have no trace of you left. You're just an invisible person. Actually, that's not too bad of an idea if I'm being completely honest with you. That sounds like a great idea, actually. So, you cannot run a nation where you cannot verify a citizen. You cannot enforce laws without functioning databases. You cannot collect taxes without trackable transactions. This is starting to sound better and better, honestly, as it goes on. You cannot defend a country when your missiles, drones, and sensors are offline. The net died and governments died with it. Alright. Corporate territorial expansion. As the states weakened, megacorps expanded their private zones. Arasaka fortified East Coast enclaves and Pacific holdings. Militech militarized key Midwest logistics hubs. Petrochem seized refineries and water processing plants. Biotechnica claimed agricultural belts. Kang Tao bought entire city districts. Corps established private police, fortified headquarters, drone defense networks, tax-free zones, hyper-secure transit corridors. Citizens began living in corporate housing, corporate arcologies, corporate-run city sectors. The nation-state was becoming irrelevant. Alright. When federal power dies, regional power rises. In the old United States, several states and territories declared, "We no longer recognize federal authority." The first breakaway, California, of course. Who else? It's always California. Closely tied to corporate power and Night City, followed by the Free State of Southern California, Free State of Nevada, Free State of Texas, Pacific Northwest Autonomous Regions, and Arizona frontier zones. These broke away quietly, not through war but through neglect. The federal government was too weak to stop them. Free states quickly suspended federal taxes, formed private state hybrid militaries, established corporate mentorship agreements, legalized mega archaeology construction, privatized everything, cut deals with Arasaka, Militech, Petrochem, and more. The old U.S. didn't fall through revolution, it fell through irrelevance. Alright, here's where we get into the part where we like the most, Night City. In 2022, Night City declares its autonomy. Night City was the first major urban center to formally reject national government. In 2022, after massive political fractures, the city council, heavily influenced by Arasaka, Petrochem, and EBM, declared Night City recognizes no national jurisdiction. The city was unprecedented, a city-state, corporate-backed, independent, and self-protecting. Night City became a sanctuary for corporations, a neutral trading hub, a geopolitical wildcard, and a symbol of the post-government world. This declaration set the precedent for dozens of other cities and regions worldwide. Alright, now we're getting to my good part, my favorite part that I like. Collapse of the United States government. So, the body was collapsing and Militech stepped in as its spine. By 2022, the U.S. federal government was essentially broken, defaulted on debt, unable to maintain infrastructure, incapable of defending borders, reliant entirely on Militech for security, hemorrhaging political legitimacy. President Elizabeth Kress, I'm not even going to mention that, realizing the government was on the verge of implosion, made a drastic move. She reorganized the United States into the new United States, a government directly supported and propped up by Militech. This was not a restoration, it was a reboot, a nation built around corporation. The world before the final war. Hungry megacorps and a blood red sky waiting to fall. By the end of 2022, global conditions were governments weakened, free states rising, corporations sovereign, the net collapsing, orbital debris accumulating, economy shattered, militias proliferating, populations displaced, Night City independent, and Arasaka and Militech locked in total rivalry. Humanity was living in a brutal world. A world where nations were fading, corporations were ascendant, the net was dying, orbit was poisoned, and infrastructure was barely holding on. This was the perfect environment for the most destructive conflict in human history. The Fourth Corporate War. Alright. Now, the Fourth Corporate War. In 2021 to 2023. The war that ended the world and birthed the one we live in now. If every previous corporate war was a storm cloud, the fourth was a lightning strike that split the earth open. This was the war that destroyed the global net, poisoned the skies, annihilated entire cities, collapsed nations, shattered global trade, and unleashed rogue AIs as well as drowned coastal regions, killed millions, and rewrote the balance of power. It was not just a conflict, it was the apocalypse. Alright. The trigger. The OTEC-Sino hostile takeover war, 2021. The Fourth Corporate War did not begin as a war between Militech and Arasaka. It began as a corporate buyout war. Just like the first, OTEC and Sino were fighting over control of the bankrupt remains of IHAG, a megacorp with holdings across aerospace, biotech, orbital construction. IHAG is on their International Heavy and Agricultural Group. So, both OTEC and Sino wanted the IHAG portfolios, and both hired their favorite megacorp bodyguards, of course, Arasaka and Militech. This was the moment the fuse ignited. The economic war. So, the first phase was non-violent on the surface, but catastrophic beneath it. Arasaka and Militech engaged in currency manipulation, artificial shortages, hostile asset seizures, shareholder coup, industrial sabotage, blackmail campaigns, cyberbank raids, destruction of data vaults, coordinated disinformation, and flooding markets with counterfeit commodities. Stock markets became battlegrounds, shareholders became weapons, and economies became casualties. Entire nations defaulted because of the battles fought between AIs on trading servers. The shooting war. Quiet sabotage gave way to open violence. This was the moment the Fourth Corpo War became a full-spectrum conflict spanning oceans, city streets, orbital platforms, corporate enclaves, the net, nomad routes, gang-ruled sectors, underwater stations, and government complexes. Militech launched coordinated assaults on Arasaka subsidiaries in North America and Europe. Arasaka retaliated by striking Militech's Asian and Pacific assets. This phase included, and these are pretty cool, drone swarm battles, covert urban firefights, destruction of research centers, burning of server farms, precision bombing of factory districts, submarine sabotage, armored convoy battles, mercenary uprising, and assassination of dozens of high-ranking officers. Every city with a corporate presence became a battlefield, and the casualty count soared. Special operations and Black Ops. When the world is ending, unleash the monsters. As losses mounted, both megacorps unleashed their darkest assets. Arasaka Black Ops, Blackwing, terror squads used to incite riots. Morasami, infiltration and executive assassinations. Ronin, expendable strike teams. Arasaka Tactical Group, elite cyber soldiers. Suma Corps, heavily augmented shock troopers. And Project Soul Killer operatives, extraction and mind theft missions. Soul Killers from where Johnny Silverhand came in, remember. Militech Black Ops. You had Kestrel Division, the Wet Work, Gorgon Corps, Anti-Arasaka Hunter Killers, Firestorm Teams, Demolition Urban Leveling, Ranger Corps, the Unit Hexer, net infiltration and AI disruption teams, and Shaitan Prototypes, experimental full Borg soldiers. These units toppled entire governments in days. They executed high-value targets, toppled political leaders, extracted scientists, kidnapped CEOs, wiped out black clinics, sabotaged food distribution, and terrorized civilian populations. The Net War. The war that killed the old net. This was the turning point. Arasaka deployed the most dangerous weapon ever created, Soul Killer 3.0. The fully weaponized version capable of digitizing minds, erasing entire neural patterns, extracting strategic knowledge, and deleting individuals from existence. Arasaka launched a campaign to steal Militech leadership, capture net runners, erase resistance leaders, blackmail governments. Militech responded by unleashing viral payloads, Gridhammer, Viroburn, LS7 cascaded neuroflay. These were all viruses which corrupted infrastructure, crippled communications, and erased data at a planetary scale. AI battles. Why do we keep using AIs? It's dumb. But anyway. They unleashed dozens of AIs to fight each other. The net became fragmented, corrupted, haunted by lethal ice, impossible to navigate. And then Bartma's data crash, still active, reached critical saturation. The net collapsed. Government networks fell offline, military systems failed, satellites lost control, global infrastructures died. That's where everything went down. Night City, the apocalypse event. Everything that came before was devastating, but nothing prepared the world for what happened in Night City. Militech launched Operation Cinder Shadow. This is going to sound very familiar, because it should. Objective: destroy Arasaka's Soul Killer servers, disrupt its command hierarchy, eliminate K. Arasaka, cripple the Arasaka Security Division. Militech-backed mercenaries infiltrate the city. Morgan Blackhand, rogue Amendataries, and dozens of elite solos. Arasaka responded with Atom Smasher, Sumacore, automated defense grids, and cyber ninja operatives. The battle raged floor by floor through Arasaka Tower at the peak of the conflict. A tactical nuclear device was detonated inside the tower. You remember that from the game? The blast leveled the corporate center. Shockwaves tore the building in half. The sky turned black. Tens of thousands died instantly, and hundreds of thousands died afterwards from all the radiation. Night City became a crater of ash, irradiated ruins, broken skyscrapers, and shattered infrastructure. This event marked the end of the Fourth Corporal War. No one could continue after that, not even Megacorp. The aftermath. The war ended not because corporations made peace, but because the world could no longer support a war. After the Night City nuke, governments collapsed, supply chains ended, the net died. Orbit filled with debris, millions became refugees. Economies imploded, coastlines were devastated, food distribution collapsed, and nations declared states of emergency. Arasaka was legally banned from the NUSA, forced out of North America, militarily crippled, split into three internal factors. Militech was bankrupt, overextended, forced into a merger with the NUSA government, reliant on emergency bailouts. This was the time of Red. The time of Red is the most atmospheric era in all of Cyberpunk's history, the age between the collapse of the old world and the rise of the world you know in 2077. It was simply not a post-apocalypse, it was the post-corporate apocalypse. A world was shaped by poisoned skies, orbital debris, collapsed nations, starving cities, nomad caravans, rogue AIs, scavenger economies, megacorps in retreat, unstable weather, and the fragile hope of construction. So, the red sky. When the Fourth Corporal War ended, Earth's orbit was filled with scattered satellites, broken space stations, kinetic weapon fragments, micro scrap, burned engine components, and debris clouds from the IEC orbital battles. When these fragments re-entered the atmosphere, they ignited as they fell. The sky burned crimson for years. A permanent red haze shrouded the planet, made thicker by atmospheric dust, pollution, firestorms, reactor meltdowns, nuclear fallout, and industrial collapses. This is why it was called the time of Red. You did not see the sun, you saw an angry red disk struggling through poison. The end of global trade. Global trade collapsed instantly. Why? Well, the oceans were war zones. Undersea fiber lines were broken. Harbors were blockaded by debris. Dozens of ocean territories were contaminated. Number 2. Air travel became dangerous. Orbital debris killed aircraft. Climate instability caused constant storms. And fuel shortages crippled fleets. Number 3. Roads were too dangerous. Gangs, raiders, and rogue militias and starving mobs ruled the highways. Number 4. Governments couldn't regulate a damn thing. Borders became meaningless. Old lines on old maps. Cities became islands. Corporations couldn't move goods. Nations couldn't manage supply lines. Nomads stepped in. And the world changed forever. The rise of the nomad nations. This is where we get the nomad people from, and all that, where they were bigger then. They kind of died down a bit at closer to 2077, but that's a whole other thing. So, with the absence of reliable infrastructure, nomads became the backbone of civilizations. Not criminals, not raiders, not vagrants, but nations. Massive families, clans, and caravans numbered in the tens of thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands. They controlled food shipments, medical supply lines, tech scavenging, mobile manufacturing, security, and regional logistics. The 7 nomad nations, the Aldecados, builders, mechanics, and logistics experts. The Jodes, high-altitude transport, drones, and blimps. Snake Nation, smugglers, outlaws, and black market networks. Wraiths, violent raiders, terror units, cannibalistic splinter sects. Metacorp nomads, contracted directly to megacorps. Storm tech caravans, weather scientists, and mobile relays. And then the 7th wave, data smugglers and off-grid engineers. These nomad nations filled the vacuum left by governments. They became the delivery system, the communication network, the safety net, the transportation grid, and the culture carriers. For 20 years, if you wanted something moved, you called a nomad. The collapse of cities. During the time of Red, cities became isolated islands, cut off from national infrastructure, cut off from foreign trade, dependent on nomad supplies, surrounded by hostile territories, vulnerable to gangs and rogue corps. Major city types of the Red Era were corporate enclaves, fortified arcologies run by surviving megacorps, walled cities, former major metro areas surrounded by hastily built barriers, refugee cities, makeshift towns formed from displaced populations, and scavenger cities built atop ruins of destroyed infrastructure. Cities became political entities, each with its own laws, militias, currency, culture, and corporate alliances. By 2035, the world looked less like Earth and more like a patchwork of miniature kingdoms. Alright, corporations in withdrawal. Megacorps entered the Red Era badly damaged. Arasaka, banned from the NUSA, fractured into three factions, Kiji, Hana, and Saburo loyalists. Lost his American holdings and in civil war internally. Militech merged with the NUSA government, burdened with massive debt, forced into political service. Petrochem, the only corp that expanded due to control of CHOOH2 fuel production, which is the synthetic biofuel produced by Petrochem. Biotechnica gained power through agriculture and held patents on synthetic food sources. Kang Tao rapidly expanded through smuggler networks and took advantage of weakening global markets. The balance of power shifted. Big corps weakened, smaller corps grew predatory. Nomad nations gained unprecedented influence, and city councils and local militias rose. Corporations would rise again, but not in the time of the Red. Rogue AIs and death of the net. After the Fourth Corporate War, the net was corrupted, fragmented, infected with data crash worms, infested with rogue AIs, and laced with death zones and ice ruins. Going online meant risking identity death, neural burnout, AI predation, ice attack, and data infection. NetWatch couldn't control it. Corporations didn't dare touch it, so humanity built the Black Wall. A massive digital barrier separating surviving networks from the AI-haunted hellscape beyond. But the AIs did not disappear. They watched. They waited. They whispered to netrunners foolishly enough to breach the wall. The net was no longer humanity's territory. The Great Rebuild, from 2030 to 2045. As dust storms weakened and orbital debris decayed, reconstruction began. Nomads rebuilt highways with mobile machinery and salvage crews. Petrochem restored energy supply globally through CHO2 biofuel production. Biotechnica fed entire nations using vat-grown protein and synthetic crops. City-states formed alliances. Night City, Libre, Free Japan, Dunita, and Neo-Tokyo Sales. Trade caravans recreated continents. Nomads became the arteries of commerce. The NUSA was reformed under Militech, not a government, but a militarized corporate republic. And by 2045, the sky was still red, but civilization was breathing again. Now the good part. Night City rises from the ashes. Night City's nuclear destruction left a crater, irradiated ruins, shattered skyscrapers, dead zones, and toxic dust. But from 2030 onward, massive rebuilding efforts began. Nomads cleared roads. Petrochem restored power. Militech secured outer districts. Arasaka remnants rebuilt infrastructure. Local gangs stabilized territories, and refugees arrived by the hundreds of thousands. Night City became a free city, a global hub, a testbed for new tech, and a beacon for reconstruction. By the end of 2045, it was the heart of the post-war world, just like Night wanted it to be. Alright. A transition to a new era, 2045. The world had changed, not healed, not recovered, but transformed. By the time of the Red ended, but not because the world was restored, but because the world adapted. By 2045, skies were clearing, trade routes were reopening, city-states stabilized, corporations regrouped, nomad nations institutionalized, the Black Wall was fully functional, and technologies had leapfrogged entire generations. And the stage was set for the rise of the NUSA, the return of Arasaka, the expansion of corporate power, the rebirth of New Night City, and the events leading up to 2077. The Red Era was not a dark age, it was a forge. Alright, next part. The rise of the new United States. The United States fell between 2022 and 2025. By the end of the Fourth Corporate War, it was no longer a functioning country, but a scattered collection of free states, corporate protectorates, and burnout territories living off nomad caravans. And yet, by 2077, the new United States of America had become one of the most powerful nations on the planet. How? Not through democracy, not through diplomacy, not through unity. The NUSA rose because of Militech, because of one woman's will to rebuild a dead nation. This is the story of how America was reborn. Post-collapse America. By 2045, the U.S. looked like this, and this is crazy. California was split into two free states. Texas was independent, not surprised. Nevada was independent. Oregon and Washington fractured into an autonomous region. Midwest territories ruled by corporate enclaves. East Coast zones were under martial law. Massive nomad control over highways. Unincorporated badlands covering half the continent. The old U.S. federal government existed in name only. They couldn't maintain, defend the borders, regulate corporations, control the economy, and all that other stuff. They just couldn't do it. They were gone. Alright, Militech, the spine of new nation. With Arasaka banned from the U.S. territory after the nuke in Night City, Militech became the default military power in North America. Militech provided national defense, border security, police support, convoy protection, anti-gang operations, weapon manufacturing, and all the other stuff, The U.S. government became dependent on Militech the same way a body becomes dependent on life support. Militech wasn't a contractor anymore. Militech was the military. It was the border, and it was the American power. Go America, baby. Anyway. Rosalind Myers, builder of the new United States. General Rosalind Myers, a brilliant tactician and one of Militech's top strategic minds, emerged as the only leader capable of rebuilding the United States. She was decisive, authoritarian, intensely patriotic, loyal to Militech, ruthless when necessary, and admired by both soldiers and civilians. By 2045, she successfully consolidated scattered state militias, remaining federal agencies, Militech command structure, surviving political blocs, and loyalist governors, and declared the new United States of America with herself as president. Not elected, not appointed, simply recognized because there was no one else strong enough to do the job. Structure of the NUSA. The NUSA was built into three pillars. They had the military power, Militech, the backbone. They had the federal loyalist states who realigned with the NUSA in exchange for funding, military protection, and infrastructure rebuilding. Then number three, the corporate partnership, Militech first, but also Petrochem, Biotechnica, Continental Brands, Sov Oil, and Zugarat. Governance existed, but corporations enforced it. Laws existed, but corporations financed them. Democracy existed, but only in the margins. The Free States' internal Cold War. Several states refused to join the United States. These included Northern California, Southern California, Nevada, Texas, and Pacific Northwest autonomous regions. They cited federal collapse, distrust of Militech, desire for corporate neutrality, Night City's independent precedents. This created an internal Cold War between NUSA and the Free States. The open conflict never resumed. Tension simmered beneath every political and economic decision. Night City sat right in the middle of this tension, the most single valuable city not controlled by either side. The NUSA reclamation campaigns. The NUSA lost a series of campaigns, diplomatic and military, to slowly bring territories back under federal authority. Here are the expanded major operations. Operation Polaris, a massive military push into the fractured Midwest territories. Objectives: eliminate warlord factions, restore supply routes, secure abandoned military depots, and reestablish federal governance. Outcome: success. Several states rejoined. Militech installs long-term garrisons. Operation Sunfire. Attempt to integrate southern Arizona and New Mexico challenges Avocado Caravans, Snake Nation Spelling Alliance, and Rogue Cyber Psyoptic gains. Outcome: partial success. NUSA gains foothold. Regions remain contested. Operation Yellowhammer. Targeted removal of raider nations in the southeast. Outcome: extremely bloody. Heavy NUSA casualties. Territory cleared. Large nomad migrations triggered. Operation American Dawn. Attempt to bring Nevada into the NUSA sphere. Outcome: stalemate. Nevada retains independence and NUSA forced to negotiate instead. Night City. The one prize the USA could never claim. Night City's independence threatened the NUSA. Why? Because Night City had a deep water port, a corporate neutrality, trade routes not under NUSA authority, massive economic power, diplomatic recognition, a central location between free states, and the most advanced tech sector in the West Coast. They wanted it bad. But they could never take it because it was supported by the free states. Corporations defended it. Arasaka returned. The city council refused unification. Nomads guaranteed supply lines, and Night City was fortified beyond relief. The NUSA in 2077. By 2077, the NUSA is authoritarian, militarized, economically dependent on Militech, in constant tension with free states, determined to reclaim Night City, struggling with internal corruption, formidable but not whole. President Myers remains in power, Militech remains the unofficial military arm. The NUSA projects strength, but behind the scenes it is still a half-rebuilt nation. A nation with power, a nation with ambition, and a nation with enemies. A nation that wants Night City. Now, Night City, the free city, yay! A city born from a corpse, raised by corporations, hardened by gangs, and destined to stand alone. Night City is not the biggest city in the world, or the richest, or the safest, but it is the most important. It is the crossroads of the post-war world, where nomads, megacorps, gangs, mercenaries, fixers, and politicians collide in a single electric organism. Night City is more than a city, it is a system, a living machine built on risk, ambition, greed, culture, and survival. Night City's rebirth. From nuclear ruin to the beating heart of the future. After 2023 Arasaka Tower nuke, Night City was a poisoned crater. Who saved it? The Nomads. Nomads first. They cleared the roads, built temp shelters, moved supplies in and out, transported refugees, and repaired machinery. The corporations, Petrochem restored energy grids, Biotechnica reopened food production. Kang Tao moved manufacturing into abandoned districts. Zetatech rebuilt data lines. Refugees, hundreds of thousands poured in. They built new slums, new markets, and new industries. NCPD and militia gangs, they forced out warlords and raiders. The Valentinos and 6th Street militia stabilized blocks the police couldn't. By 2045, the dust storms were fading, the sky was clearing, supply routes were stable, the economy was rising, and new mega blocks stood where the old cities burned. The Free City Charter of 2051. In 2051, the Night City Council declared Night City is a fully sovereign city. Not part of the NUSA, NorCal, SoCal, or the Free States. It became its own nation, its own economy, its own law. This charter created a powerful city council, an independently funded NCPD, autonomous city courts, a corporate high-rise zoning authority, a dense network of private security treaties, and the afterlife mercenary system de facto. This document didn't just liberate the city, it turned it into a neutral ground. A place where Militech, Arasaka, Biotechnical, and all dozens more could coexist under a carefully negotiated constraints. Night City became the Switzerland of the post-war world, except for more crime and more cyber and more neon. Who really rules Night City? Night City governments has 3 visible layers. Number 1, the mayor. Public power, no real authority. He's a figurehead. He conducts press conferences, cuts ribbons, and gets bribed enough to afford the best cyber in Haywood. Mayors include Lucius Ryan and Jefferson Perez. They do not run Night City, they perform Night City. The City Council, the real political authority. This 12-person powerhouse controls zoning, policing, public works, corporate treaties, city development, taxation. Most councilors are backed by corporations, gangs, wealthy people, fixers, foreign powers, and blah 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 blah. Let's think of the city council as the Night City's oligarchy. The corporations, the true ruling class, the supreme ones. Arasaka, security, banking, data, VIP protection, militech, weapons, armored assets, training, and diplomacy. Petrochem, fuel, biotechnica, food and gene modification. Kang Tao, smart guns, drone tech, and weapons innovation. Zeta Tech and Ziggurat, net architecture, telecom, and data infrastructures. Corporations can't openly rule the city. The council won't allow it. They rule indirectly, though, through contracts, bribes, lobbying, supply chain leverage, private armies, and yada yada yada. You know the difference. Okay. The invisible government, the fixers. Fixers like Rogue Militaries, Wacko, Padre, and Mr. Hands keep the gears running. They negotiate deals. They enforce street laws. They hire mercs. They smooth political friction, ensure espionage doesn't escalate to war. Fixers prevent the city from collapsing into chaos, as they profit handsomely, of course. The NCPD, the corporate police force. The badge is a symbol. The paycheck is a contract. Night City Police Department is underfunded, overarmed, corporately subsidized, always corrupt, and constantly overwhelmed. More importantly, 70% of the NCPD funding comes from mega corporations, including vehicles, high-grade cyberware, weapons, armor, trauma gear, and building maintenance. So, NCPD answers to corporate donors first, the city council second, and citizens last. Of course, this is why they ignore gang war zones. They respond instantly to corpo threats. They treat poverty districts as combat zones. They always show up late unless a corp cares. NCPD isn't evil, they just simply serve the highest bidder. What do you expect? Gangs, the real street governments. Okay. Night City's gangs are more powerful than most municipal governments. Here's how they expanded down. The Valentinos. Honor bound, culturally rooted, control Haywood, deal in protection, smuggling, and bodyguards. The Tiger Claws, Yakuza Link, dominate Japantown, operate cyberware, black markets, and ruthless, wealthy, territorial. The 6th Street, ex-militia, Patriot Gang, neighborhood defenders, rival of Valentinos, heavy firepower everywhere. Maelstrom, you recognize them a lot from the game. Extreme cyber modifiers, violent, unstable, controlled industrial zones, sell illegal cyberware. The Animals, biologically augmented brute force gang, mercenaries for hire and active in Pacifica. You remember them too. The Voodoo Boys, net runners, experts in black wall breaches, Pacifica's digital underworld, secretly tied to rogue AIs. Those are the same ones you visit in the game and break through the wall with. And then the Mox, sex worker protection club and safe houses, moderate but dangerous if provoked. The Mox, where you go to get them BD dances and all that stuff. Gangs collect taxes, enforce law, and stabilize communities the NCPD cannot. Night City as a global hub is important because of economic power. It has port access, global trade neutrality, corporate headquarters, and mercenary markets. Technical dominance in every major advancement such as cyberware, net running, robotics, weaponry, biotech comes through Night City first. Cultural influence, music, brain dance, fashion, and subcultures. Night City defines global style. Political independence. Neither the NUSA nor free states can absorb the city without global consequences. Criminal innovation. Everything from black clinics, experimental cyberware, rogue AI movements, and new gang structures. Night City is the prototype for humanity's future. Why Night City matters more than any nation. Night City sits at the junction of the 4 major power blocks. NUSA, free states, megacorps, and nomads. It is a diplomatic, economic, and cultural crossroads of the post-corporate war world. Whoever controls Night City controls Pacific trade, core net infrastructure, corporate diplomacy, distribution routes, mercenary markets, and technological R&D. This is why both President Myers and Hanako Arasaka fight for influence. Alright. Okay. You already know most about that. Alright, I'm going to go over some of the fixers and shadow networks. So, top tier fixers. Rogue Minotari is Queen of the Afterlife. Rogue, you know her. Waka Waka, Japan's matriarch. You know who she is too. Padre, Sebastian Ibarra, the Soul of Haywood, Mr. Hands, and Moir Reyes, El Capitan. Fixers handle diplomacy, espionage, assassination, mercenary operations, gang conflicts, and corporate negotiations. Alright. Alright, so we're going to go over the cyberware. This is a little more detailed here. Cyberware, complete breakdown. Cyberware is divided in 6 major categories: neural wear, ocular and optical systems, cyber limbs, skeleton wear, internal organs, bioware, skin and surface mods, interface systems. Neural wear, the core of your cybernetic identity. It's installed in or around the brain. It'll control things like your reaction time, your targeting assistance, memory enhancement, hacking abilities. Example, brain dance chipset, memory wipes, and personality implants. This is where cyberpsychosis risk is highest. Optical systems. Eyes are no longer organs. They're cameras, scanners, and weapons. They become your surveillance, like the Kiroshi optics, the smart target lenses, or internal hoods. The cyber limb, skeletal wear. Replace the weak parts with steel. Cyber limbs come with hydraulic muscles, actuators, shock absorbers, and armor plating, and such and such and such. Skeletal upgrades can include titanium bones, carbon weave frames, and subdermal anchor points. Extreme limb replacement is most common in Maelstrom, animals, and corporate shock troops, as long as military Borg units. Internal organs. The line between flesh and machine dissolves here. These upgrades often keep mercs alive when the rest of their body should be dead, kind of like how V is, you know. How the chip thing is keeping him alive even though it shouldn't be. Okay, you got skin and surface mods, you know. These are the most valuable and the most intimidating types of cyberware. Subdermal armor, thermal chemical insulation, color shifting skin, hardened plating, or retractable blades or spikes. Interfaces, you know, the kind you plug into and all that. They allow cyberware to talk to other systems. A smart gun without a smart link is just a gun. They do interface plugs, neural jacks, and so on and so forth. Cyberpsychosis, the technical truth. Cyberpsychosis is caused when too much cyberware, too much neural load, too much sensory information, too much disassociation, and too much violence. It pushes the human ego past its breaking point. But here's what actually happens. Neural wear sends data faster than the organic brain can process. Its senses override emotions, identity breaks down, empathy collapses, and self-image degrades. The sufferer becomes hyper-logical, hyper-hostile, disconnected from humanity, violent, and compulsive. Many cyberpsychosis believe people are obstacles, flesh is weak. Others are glitches, only efficiency matters. They must upgrade. The more cyberware, the more machine logic overrides human logic. Alright, net running in the black wall. I'm not going to go too much into this because if you played the game, you already know. The old net was global, open, limitless, terrifying, and after the data crash in the fourth corporate world became corrupted, infected, fragmented, and filled with AIs. NetWatch built the black wall, a digital barrier that quarantines the entire net beyond 2040. What lives beyond it? Evolved AIs. You meet one of those. Digital organisms, corpses of old AIs, entities that communicate in patterns, not language. They try to manipulate and get in, of course. Net running. In 2077, modern net running is only local. It includes camera loops, turret hacks, smart gun interfaces, enemy neural overloads, ice picks, and so on and so forth. The Black Wall prevents global exploits, but the Voodoo Boys are trying to breach it because behind the Black Wall lies forbidden knowledge, rogue AI allies, and uncontrolled power. Weapon systems of 2077. Power weapons. You got old school firearms, ricochet, kinetic, and stuff like that, favored by the 6th Street and whatnot. Tech weapons, you got railgun style stuff. Fun stuff there. Smart weapons, of course, like the micro guided systems and all that. Like you got the fancy pistol that'll sit there and aim at a bunch of people. We got robotics and drones and autonomous warfare. Drones are everywhere. Everywhere. You got bioengineering and genetics. Biotechnica leads the world in DNA rewriting. Vat-grown tissue, clone organ transplant, and immune system augmentation. And much more. And brain dance allows full sensory recording, emotional playback, memory duplication, trauma reconstruction, and a lot more. Entertainment is the legal market. Espionage is the real one. Brain dance is the easiest way to manipulate, addict, interrogate, and brainwash. Alright. Alright. So here's the master timeline. Here's the one that I'm going to talk about. Here's where I'm going to sum everything up. Okay. So, Era 1, the pre-corporate rise. 1990s, 2000. Global warming intensifies. Oil shortages have stabilized. Early mega corporations grow into state level power. Sovereign governments begin to regulate. Corporate ascendancy, 2001 to 2010. This is where the corporations begin to grow. They start growing worldwide and start taking over. Then there's the first corporate war, which is from 2004 to 2006. 2008 to 2010 was the second corporate war. And then 2010 to 2020, early corporate wars. Finally, 2016 to 2020 was the third corporate war. Then the fall of governments, the global economic collapse, the OTC and CNO hostile takeover, and then the fourth corporate war. Then the nuke events as well. Time of the Red, and then the Nomad Ascent, and the Reconstruction, and then the World of Cyberpunk Red. Then the Rebuilding Era, formation of the new United States, the Night City Free City Charter, all the way until the current modern era, where you enter 2077. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, I don't think I am. Okay, here we go. There we go. I knew I was forgetting something. Full Black Ops files, secret assassinations, and covert units. So, this is the classified layer of everything we've covered so far, the hidden war beneath every war. This chapter will pull together all the Black Ops activities across all the eras. So you already know about most of these that I talked about earlier. So I'm going to go after the ones that are in the game that we like to talk about so much. Actually, no, I'm gonna go over the Nomads because we didn't discuss those earlier. The Aldecado Shadow Crews. Rescue, extraction, and smuggling with honor. They operate where governments cannot. Rescuing trafficked people, smuggling refugees, extracting targets from corpo zones, and evading military satellites. Known for never harming civilians. There's a few other ones like Snake Nation, Wraiths, and all that. But you can imagine what they do. They're already evil. Okay. So this is the reason why 2077 looks the way it does. The four great conditions of the world model. Number one, permanent corporate dominance. Governments cannot replace megacorps. They are too big and too essential. Number two, fragmented nation states. Unified global politics is impossible. Regions act independently and borders are porous. City-states are rising. Number three, digital catastrophe. The data crash ensures. Digital instability, limited net running, rogue AI threats. And number four, resource scarcity, environmental ruin. The time of the red permanently damaged. Climate, oceans, agriculture, and infrastructure. So, the grand theory of cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a world in which humanity has solved every problem except the ones that matter. It solved disease, injury, aging, physical limitation, information access, resource production, and warfare efficiency, but it failed to solve greed, inequality, power concentration, moral decay, political collapse, corporate ambition, digital entropy, and the consequences of its own inventions. Thus humanity built godlike corporations, post-national cities, rogue artificial AIs, cybernetic enhancements, and weapons that bend physics, networks too complex to understand. And all of them are now out of control. The final synthesis. The future is not owned by nations. It is not owned by corporations. The future isn't owned by humans at all. It is a contested territory where everything powerful wants to dominate everything weaker. In 2077, power is the only currency. In Night City is where all the power fights. Alright. Alright guys, I know this is a long video, especially since it's an hour and a half. I thank you for sticking with me this long. I know this is a long video. I really only did this for my buddy because he wanted to know what was it about, like how it happened, where it came from, and all that, what events happened and stuff. There's so much to cover here. If y'all want to hear about any specific portion of it, just comment down below, so that way I can look into it a little deeper, because there's so much, as I said, to cover. I mean, you've been here for an hour and a half. I mean, that should tell you exactly how long it takes. So, let me know what you think down in the comment section. I look forward to seeing what you think. See you until next time, guys.